All right, can you hear me okay? My name is Lisa Horn. I am the Vice Chair for the Santan Valley Advisory Council. We are so excited to have everyone here tonight. Unfortunately, I missed the last one. I heard it was really great. It was mine and my husband's wedding anniversary. He said it wouldn't have been too romantic. So that's why I might look new to you. If you're curious what Santan Valley Advisory Council is, there are some wrapped cards. If you didn't already get one, you can get one on the way out. You can also visit our website. It's stvac.org. We are always looking for volunteers and additional members. We do have some open positions on our board of directors, so if that is something that you think you may be interested in, definitely find one of us afterwards, because we'd love to chat with you more about that. If you need to use the restroom, you just go out either of these glass doors and to the left, and the restrooms are just out here, actually I think on the other side of this wall. So that's where the restrooms are. To give everyone an opportunity to ask questions during the question period, Q&A period, we will limit the questions to 1 minute, with one follow-up question that also is another additional minute per turn. We invite you to be respectful of this time restraint to allow all residents that wish to ask questions time to do so, and we will do our best to try and get to everyone. It is the expectation that we will have a respectful discourse this evening in the spirit of community and education regarding the topic of incorporation. Just a little side note and disclaimer, Kevin O'Reilly was the gentleman over here. He's in the back now. Kevin, if you want to raise your hand. Kevin is our treasurer for our board of directors here with stvac.org. And then we also have more volunteers and board members. Andy, and I always want to say it's Haas, right? Okay, I just spell it wrong. I think I say it right, but I spell it wrong. I think I spelled the avocado way, and it's not spelled that way. Side note, fun fact. He is our secretary. Both of those gentlemen, I believe, are currently in the Matt area. I live up north by Combs High School. I am not in the Matt area. So we wanted to make it very clear, full disclosure, we're not hiding anything. Some of us are included in the Matt area. Some of us are not included in the Matt area. We are making sure, thank you so much, Kevin. We are making sure to stay as neutral as possible, even though some of us are in the Mapped area, some of us are not in the Mapped area, some of us might want to be incorporated, some of us might not want to be incorporated. We are trying to stay as neutral as possible, but we also felt that it was very important as an advisory council to the Pinell County Board of Supervisors that we offer a way to bridge the gap between the county, the municipalities, and the residents to bring as much education about this measure as possible so that you can make a decision based on the facts. With that, let's go ahead and begin. If you would like to go down the panel, and we'll start here with Deb. If you would like to introduce yourself, it should be on. If it's not, I can help you. Let us know your name, what your affiliation is with STV Inc. 2024, and then a little bit about yourself, maybe where you live or how long you've lived here, things like that.
Hi, can you guys see it? Is it on?
Hit the mute maybe.
Ah, there we go. Okay, the button, the light needs to be green. All right, I'll remember that for next time. Just a tip for you guys. My name is Deborah Gratt, and I am a resident of Johnson Ranch. I've been out in Santan Valley for 23 years, so I don't know who can beat me. I think I'm one of the long timers here. I am a board member with STV Inc. and I don't know what else to say. That I love the community and everything. And I just feel like we need a voice, and I wanted to at least see us get the option of bringing this to the ballot so that we can vote on it, so that people can decide do they want to be incorporated. Because I personally am tired of not even being given that opportunity. So that's kind of why I got involved initially. So I'll bring it over to Adrian now.
I'm Adrian Litton. I'm also on the board. I've been in Santan Valley for 4.5 years. I am a geographer by trade. I consult with highway departments and state and local governments. I've been doing that for over 30 years, a minute or two. I'm the one who drew the boundaries of the map. I didn't decide on the boundaries of the map. These were agreed upon before I became involved with the effort, but I'm pretty much responsible for kind of figuring out what the geography of the new incorporated area will be and try and answer questions regarding what's going to be there, what's encompassed in the incorporation area, and who we are, who lives here.
My name is Buchanan Davis, or Buck Davis. I've been in Santan Valley since 2009, and my wife and I have 4 kids, and I work for some little project, but just happen to be here, and I was grateful for this opportunity to hopefully get an opportunity to vote on this measure, and that's my motivation.
Good evening. My name is John McFarland. I am not a board member, just a volunteer. I've been working with the board for some time, just compiling information, trying to get data from the relevant agencies, county, state, League of Cities, trying to pull financial information and legal information together as far as how the process is going to work. I've lived in Santan Valley here in Johnson Ranch since 2013. Love the community. My personal opinion is that we need to incorporate simply for representation. Right? Our area is represented by a couple of board supervisors who also are, excuse me, they're responsible for the entire county, not necessarily Santan Valley. So other parts of the county tend to take priority, and I think the only way that's going to change is if we have our own local representation.
Hi, I'm Jack Waller. I'm one of the original board members. I lived here about 3 years now. I'm here because I got tired of seeing our money go other places in the county. You pay property taxes here, the money should stay here. Tired of spending our money in Queen Creek, and they're getting our sales tax money. So that's why I'm here trying to get this incorporated.
On to that microphone. We're going to come back to a lot. Okay. While I wasn't here, and I was at a wonderful Mexican dinner with my husband at the last meeting, I did go back and I watched a replay of the live video. If any of you want to go back to tonight or share it with neighbors or friends or people that you know, you can do so at our Facebook or our YouTube. That's what I did, so I can kind of catch up to speed on what happened. I did notice that there was a question before we get started about the map, and that's available on a public website. If you notice, I went to, sorry, I have great far away vision. I can't see up close. This happens as you get older. SantanValleyInc.com. So you can pull that up on your phone right now. If you want to connect to the Wi-Fi, it's CAC Guest. But that's where you can pull up the map at any given time. If you noticed when I was over there a moment ago, I was able to toggle back and forth between the map that you see here, and then at the bottom, a PDF version. But that's available to anybody at any time. It's on a public domain that anybody can see. So I just wanted to make sure that we have that up there. All right.
And just to mention, go ahead, you have the mic.
And we want to make it clear at the outset that this is a proposed map, and there can be changes and should be changes, and so that's part of this and other community meetings that we've been doing is to get feedback, because we have not. We can go into that process later, but this is still in flux, still being negotiated. There's nothing set in stone here, and so I wanted to make that clear at the outset.
So if you're in the map and you don't want to be in the map, you could reach out to STV Inc., right? What's the best way that they would go about doing that?
They can reach out, here we go. Sorry, I'll try to remember to grab that thing. You know, of course, if, let's say you don't want to be in the map and you're in a community, we understand not everybody in that development, let's say, because I'm Johnson Ranch. So let's say I'm in Johnson Ranch and I don't want to be in the community or in the incorporated map. That's fine, but then get together with your neighbors and we want to hear what's the majority. So get a voice together, get people together, and we'd be glad to come to your, area and have a discussion with your community so that we can see, what is it? What is the driving force? Is it an option to remove it out of the map? Because of course you can't create county islands, that's a whole other thing or whatever, or you have to get special permission. Somebody else knows more about that than me. But again, we want to hear what you have to say and we can see what we can do and have a discussion and open up a dialogue with anybody who's got a different opinion. Because we also have people that want to be in the map and they've expressed that to us as well. And so there are things we look into then. Is it possible to add them? So that's why this is proposed and it's not the final yet.
Do you have an idea on when the tentative deadline would be that they would need to garner support from their neighbors?
If we want to stay on track for getting this into the November ballot, we have to do it probably within the next, I'd say 30 to 60 days, because that's when we're going to start finalizing the map and then putting forth the petition. We have to have the final map for the petition process.
Okay, perfect. And if you want to hang on to the microphone, because I'm going to ask you the first question.
Yes.
I just want to clarify that you guys are talking November of 2024.
Yes,
But
November of
we actually
2024.
I'm
have,
sorry.
we do have ballots coming out on October 11th
Okay.
for
That's
jurisdictional
that
races.
clarification. November of 2024. Yeah.
A year, because we're not going to get signatures in a month, so yes. We are.
All right, thank you, Jack. Okay, so Deb, why, some people might look at what your committee is doing and think, why are you being so ambitious? Why are you trying to incorporate such a large area? Because whether or not people agree or disagree, for example, I'm left out and I have 2 board members that are included. Regardless of where you sit, that is a large area of land. And it may appear to be ambitious to some people. Why shouldn't we start smaller and then try to annex other areas?
Well, it kind of comes down to bringing it to the most simple matter is we've got, if you're looking at the map, population is in the northern section and then you have it also in the southern. So it's kind of like, where do you start drawing, the lines? And then people were not happy about being left out. So we decided, let's start here and see where we end up because we're spread out so much that, we do want to just pick one population and then leave other people out and have them be upset about it. I mean, essentially, because then you have a lot of state land in there and everything and kind of in the center of it. So, I mean, I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything.
Also, if we carve out just the most densely populated areas, we need 2 cities, and we have no retail space. And we need to have retail space because that's where revenue comes from. Right now, our revenue, we're paying to Queen Creek for most of our shopping. If we want to go out to a nice dinner, all of the retail commercial space here is basically Home Depot and brake shops. There's one.
And lots of car washes. You see the people are super excited about those on Facebook. They get lots of hearts.
Yes.
So we want to incorporate a large enough area to where we can support the population with added revenues that don't necessarily come out of create an additional tax on all of the people. So if we have retail space and we encourage commercial development here, then we can get sales tax from other people that come into Santan Valley and then leave.
Thank you. And then before we move on, did you want to add to that? Before we move on, Deb, I do have one more question for you. How will the new city be funded? I think that's one of the #1 questions that people ask.
It is, and I know that we've been sharing this information in our open houses that we've had, and we have another one on September 30th. So if you'd like to come, it's going to be at the Santan Heights Community Center. But anyway, that's a Saturday, so it's not a weeknight or anything. We're going to get, if we get incorporated, we have a roughly 90,000 to 100,000 people as of the last census. And the Arizona League has estimated that our percentage or our portion of the state shared revenue would be about $51.3 million that we would get to fund our city. And with incorporation, you know, you may think right away, we're not going to be a Queen Creek, right? When we start out, you're not going to see a lot of difference. We're going to look at what are the essential things that we have to fund. And basically, we need a sheriff, we need an administration, so you got to have a place where people can come to do business and a couple people that can run, you know, the city during office hours, so to speak. Someone wants to come and, you know, get a license for something, they got to have a place to go. And also, we then need to take care of our streets. Those are the three things that are required upon a corporation. So for the first couple of years, that's what we're going to, you know, be focusing on, or I would say not us, but you know, whoever the city government is at the time. So 51.3 million. We are trying to put together. I think we're calling it our estimated essential costs, and we hope to have that within the next week or two that we can share with everybody, so you can see how much of the 51.3 million it would take. And I know a lot of people on Facebook and social media, there's concern about how my property taxes will go up. Your property taxes aren't going to go up without a vote by the people who are registered voters within the boundaries of the city. The city government that will be put into place, they're not able to just tax you on property taxes without it being put up for a vote. So,
Adrian, and do you prefer to be called Buchanan or Buck? I feel like you're more of a Buchanan. Is it okay if I call you Buchanan? Okay. Will we have our own fire department? That's another top question.
So there's a variety of options after incorporation. The immediate, what will happen immediately after incorporation is nothing. It will continue to be subscription based, but the new city council would have an option. They would have a variety of options. A lot of the other cities, for example, Scottsdale and Queen Creek and Chandler, when they first incorporated, they contracted their fire services with something like Rural Metro, most of them the Rural Metro. So the municipality would have that option. They could contract with Rural Metro, or they could continue under a subscription base, or they could, there's a couple options there. So there's not an automatic, so fire is not considered one of those essential services that were mandated by law to have on once we incorporate. And so your fire won't change overnight once once you're incorporated. That happens. That would be a decision that the council would have to make.
Did you want to elaborate on that, Jack?
I would just like to point out that Queen Creek went 20 years under subscription before they ever started having their own fire department. So that's how, so that's just how it works.
Yeah, that's a great point. So Queen Creek went several decades without having their own fire department. Like I said, Scottsdale, they contracted out to Rural Metro. And so you'd probably see something like that, like Jack.
All right, Adrian, what?
Questions?
Oh, did you want to do Q&A at the end? Did you want to do it as we go along? What do you, yes, panel? I mean, it's really.
With
Anybody got any
respect, there's
preferences?
several people mentioning that they have questions directly relating to some of the things each speaker said, and it would be really a shame if they lost track of that as things went through.
Is that fine?
sure.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So we'll take a few and then we'll move along, because if we spend too much time on like just fire, like we could hash that out all night. But we'll take a few now and move along, and then if we don't get to you, I do apologize. Try to write it down, wave your hand at Kevin, we'll send him on an excursion to go find paper and pen for you, so that we try to keep it for later. So who had their hand? Okay, if you'd like to stand up or sit down, either way, whatever's comfortable and good for you.
As long as we can hear you.
Saying, could, the council could make a change. Maybe this will happen. Is there no set plan? Good.
Are you referring to a future town council, or are you referring to this committee?
He said council. I assume that means.
That's
future
a,
town
yes,
council.
that's a future town council.
Might decide to change how the fire is done.
Right, that's exactly right. So,
So you're not, the town, if it incorporates, it is not going to be, Santan Valley will not contract with rural.
yeah, that will be a decision by a future town council that we can't, as a committee, control, because we're not the appointed or elected officials. And so, what many of us feel like is we would like to have that conversation and that opportunity to decide how we want to contract fire or something like that. But, and that's why we want to incorporate, so we can have that opportunity.
So
There's
you're
nothing
not-
that we can do to mandate or to make that.
You're not gonna have an answer on that topic until after incorporation right now.
Correct.
Well, it's like anything that you would then have the opportunity to go to your elected officials or who have been put in to the position, and you can tell them what you want. They'll listen to you. You're talking then to, I think it's 7 people who would be on the council.
Yes.
And that's who you would be able to go to and let them know what your desires are for the city. And then they make the decisions.
We have a question back here.
Clarifying the $51.3 million from the state, is that yearly?
Yes,
That is yearly.
Yes.
yeah.
Do you really think $51.3 million is gonna get us a new sheriff's department and, policing our area?
We're going to have an answer for you on that when we have our essential costs estimated essential costs out. So we're looking into that, trying to, we've reached out to the sheriff's department, we've reached out to a whole bunch of other people. What are the costs going to be once we incorporate?
About our Banner Medical Center and hospital there, that's technically Santan Valley, but Queen Creek wants it like desperately.
Queen Creek already has a hospital, that's already Queen Creek.
They've already annexed it.
They have a-
Yeah, that's not part of Santan Valley at all, they're already Queen Creek.
And we're going to take 2 more questions. This gentleman here, and then this.
Just to clarify that, so yes, we would be creating a new department, but we would be contracting with the Pinal County Sheriff's Office, who already provides service here, but now it would be a contract with the Sheriff's Office.
And before you ask your question, is there a way for them to sign up for alerts or things like that, so that when the cost analysis, whatever it's called, comes out, that you can be alerted to it?
Yeah, if you were sitting down when I came in, I handed out little cards, or they were handed to you upon entry. It's a little business card. So on the business card, there is our website address, and that's the one that they're at right here, santanvalleyinc.com. And just go there, you can sign up for email updates. Give us your email address, and then we do email blasts, whenever we have something to share.
And there's a lot more of them back here at the table that has a tablecloth. There's these little business cards. You all are more than welcome to grab those before you leave. And we're going to go over here for your questions.
How is it ethical for you to be on a board to annex an area that you don't even live in?
So that's a very good question, and since it was directed at me, I'll allow you to elaborate. That's a great question. We are not related. We are totally separate entities. Santan Valley Advisory Council, so let me just go back to this website here. The names are very similar, so it can be kind of confusing. This is us. This is the nonprofit that was initiated by Supervisor Goodman and the Pinal County Board of Supervisors. We are a nonprofit organization. We work with the Pinal County Board of Supervisors to host education sessions, to do community outreach, and things like that. Thank you. I used to work in radio, and I have 5 kids, so I can project pretty good when this does happen. So we have had other, if you look up at the top where it says educational series, we've done, Judy back there, wave your hand. She's one of our master gardeners. We held an education session on gardening. So if you wanted to learn about xeriscape and things like that, that was one that we held. We also held 2 on fire.
Yes.
Fire district.
Fire districts. And then rural metro, that's right. So we have held, oh there, we are right there. So we hold several different education sessions, and that's why I did say full disclosure, because I have nothing to hide from you. I live in an area that's not included in the map, okay? I have 2 of my board members that are included in the map. How we personally feel about it is irrelevant, because we're still holding an education session. We're completely neutral. We also held one with rural metro. I have a very large home on 8 acres. I would love to have a fire department. We had rural metro come, and then we also did another education session. I have nothing to hide of my personal feelings about anything, but we still try to show all sides of the story. And so if, for example, you have a group of citizens that would like to show the opposing view to this, we would also be happy to host them. So we try to just show all the facts about situations and events. Things might go to the ballot that are here and affecting our residents, because I'm a fellow resident. And my son goes to Combs High School, and that's also not included. And I might feel a certain way about that one way or the other.
I want to say you're annexing the whole Santan Valley.
Why? Well, we can ask them. But I want you to know that this is a totally separate organization that's been around for much longer, and we work in conjunction with the Pinal County Board of Supervisors. They are an organization that is established to get a measure on the ballot. And so in our capacity, we use Santan Valley so that people would identify and know who we are for, it's kind of like smart marketing purposes, so that people can find us and know that we're the advisory council for this area. And then they also use the acronym for it, STV, Inc. 2024. It coincidentally sounds the same, but we're not the same. We're completely different. It would be like Hannah Dix and his wife and me and my husband, totally separate houses, totally separate people, totally separate families. That's kind of like what STV Inc. 2024 is and STVAC, totally separate. We didn't get to you yet,
No.
and then we're gonna come back to the guest panel, and then I will come back to the audience for more questions.
I just had a quick question because you said something about September 30th at Santan Heights Community Center. What were you going to discuss there?
It's an open house that we have. We've done a number of them. So this is our last one. And it's on a Saturday, I want to say 10:30. And we have a little presentation we run through, and then we open it up for questions and to talk to the community, because we're trying to get feedback. That's what we've been doing these last, what are we on, five months or so? That we've been doing this. So that's what the September 30th event is. So, and we expect to have a budget. Well, we're trying not to call it budget, because we don't want you to think that this is our estimated cost for essential services for incorporating, what it's going to cost the city for the first couple of years. So, and again, please, Facebook, website, just, reach out anyway.
Adrian. And we will get back to the audience for more questions. But in the interest of time, because we have about an hour and a half left, we'll try and hop back and forth between the two. Adrian, what potential benefits do you envision for the community with Santan Valley being incorporated in 2024?
The primary benefit is that if we incorporate, we have a much larger voice in our own governance. So what that really means is, right now, we are facing pretty much uncontrolled urbanization in what used to be a very rural area. And it's uncontrolled because there are a large number of residential development contracts that are already in place. Land has already been platted. The county did not create a overarching development plan for the rural areas. So that kind of leads the developers as the key lobbyists to come in and say, this is how we're going to build things out. That's not in our interests. What is in our interest is to have local government with a community development plan, a city plan that says, this is what is going to be residential areas, this is what's going to be transportation corridors, this is how we are going to build and grow our community. So kind of looping back to us as the board, we don't get to say what is going to happen and what could happen. What is going to happen once we incorporate is the county, is the board of supervisors is going to appoint a set of city council members. And those city council members, they will be appointed for the first 2 years and then they'll be up for election. They will have to make decisions. That's 7 city council members for roughly 100,000 people. So right now you have 1 1/8 of a county supervisor representing your interests. You will have 1 city council member for every 15,000. That's huge representation compared to what you've got right now.
And for those that aren't familiar, Supervisor Goodman, he covers almost all of the area that is up for incorporation. Surrey and McClure are like a little tiny blip on the map at the bottom. So for the majority of our area, it is just Supervisor Goodman.
And then the other key thing is that the money that we spend here right now, it goes to Coolidge, it goes to Florence, it goes to Maricopa, some of it goes to Queen Creek. We pay taxes, and those taxes go to the state, they go to the county, and then some of those taxes come back to the communities. But if we're not an incorporated community, they don't come back to us. What's left over goes to the county, and the county spends it as they see fit. And we're, again, 100,000 people, and there's over $50 million annually of shared revenue that get dispersed to 5 other cities that aren't us.
The whole Arizona, 91 cities.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're taking a piece of all of that. We'll be 93, because I think, what is it, Vail? Is it Vail that just got incorporated? So, yeah, so if we get incorporated, we'll be the 93rd city, I believe, in Arizona.
And then to kind of piggyback off of what you just shared with us, what challenges or concerns do you foresee in the incorporation process, and how can those concerns be addressed?
Well, the biggest challenge is funding and manpower, and those are one thing. So we need people to volunteer to help us, especially we're going to be starting a signature drive. We're expecting in November of this year to get on the ballot for November of next year. We have 61,000, I think it's 61,000 registered voters in our incorporation area. And that means that we have to have 10%, which is 6,100 verified signatures. In order to get 6,100 verified signatures, we have to have about 12,000 signatures, because some people are are not sure if they're inside the incorporation area, they might sign. Some people are not registered to vote, or we have a fairly new law that you're not necessarily on the permanent voters register. So if you haven't voted in the last couple of years, you might be taken off. So we have to get a lot of signatures. That's going to require funding. We also need better advertising and marketing, which is my job. So we need to get our webpage and our messaging out to everybody, getting everybody to understand what it is that they're voting for or against is really important. And we need everybody, even if you're against incorporation, you should be signing the petition, because you want it to get on the ballot so you can say no. So those are the big challenges, I think.
If you don't mind handing that over to Buchanan, how will incorporation change local governance and decision-making? And maybe relate it even to some things that residents have faced recently. The LG lithium plant, which is technically in Queen Creek, but it's adjacent to that northern rural area, or other examples that you might have. How would incorporation change local governance in those regards?
Well, I think Adrian talked about this and spoke on it, but right now, 100,000 people, we really have one or two folks on the board of supervisors. I think our board of supervisors are very responsive, and they've been wonderful voices. But as was pointed out, we have a large county, and they are looking. So there's 5 members of the board of supervisors that have to deal with the whole county, and we have one who lives in Santan Valley, and we have a supervisor in the third district goes into partisan in Santan Valley as well. So you would move from really having one person representing you to 7, and issues right now focused on the county, and you would have an opportunity to focus on a municipality, and that municipality would be much more focused. So that's really how the governance has changed. Right now, if you want to talk about Santan Valley, you have to go to a board of supervisors meeting where they're talking about a whole lot of other issues, across the county, instead of a municipality where you have a council, a city council where you could talk about Santan Valley issues specifically. And so your voice would go from 1 to 7, as we pointed out. So yes, that gives you an opportunity for. There's a whole lot of reasons why this is important in my mind. Right now, we don't have representation on broader issues as well. So you talk about the LG plant or other things that are going on around us. We don't have somebody who's representing our interests, and this would give us an opportunity to create that, and I think that's important. I think that's what's happened, and why many of us are here is we've seen a lot of growth, and whether you and I want the growth or not, it's happening, it's coming, and we don't get a say in what that looks like. We don't get a say in some of the transportation going on around us. We don't get a say in some of these things, or our say is diminished. And so this will give us a louder, stronger voice.
All right, thank you. And we haven't forgot about you two over here. John, what are the financial implications of incorporation for Santan Valley and its residents? The common questions, will my taxes increase, and what about property taxes?
Obviously, these are the big questions. I'll kind of give you some broad strokes. Assuming an incorporation effort passes the ballot in November of 2024, what happens immediately is the new municipalities' share of the bulk of the state revenue will begin to accrue on day 1. So even before the city exists, which doesn't happen until the following July 1st, so for those 7 months, a portion of that state revenue starts to accrue. There will be costs involved in hiring attorneys and city clerks and finding office space and things of that nature, essentially setting up the administration, the organization of a city. So that those funds will be there to do that. Board of Supervisors, as said, will appoint a council. They will then start making decisions as to, okay, who's going to be the city attorney. We're not going to, chances are the vast majority of these positions are going to be contract positions. Are you going to hire a city clerk? It might be somebody that has worked for Gilbert before, maybe somebody who's retired and wants to come back part-time. This is not something where we're going to immediately, they're likely to immediately build a giant city office. So those funds begin to accrue. On July 1st, the new city begins, and it must begin providing the essential services that were discussed earlier. In the meantime, during those 7 months, the county continues to cover all of those costs at essentially no expense to the new city. That doesn't actually start until July 1st. Now, what happens to taxes? When a new city council comes in, the only statutory authority they have, the only tax that a city council can implement without a vote is a city sales tax. Just about every municipality in this state has a city sales tax. Right now, you shop in Queen Creek, you're paying 2.5% of that to Queen Creek. That is directly supporting Queen Creek city government. So that is the only thing they can change on day one. The council can implement the city sales tax. They can do that with a council vote and nothing else. A property tax cannot be implemented without a referendum to the voters. And based on the numbers that we got from the League of Cities, less than 10% of the last several dozen corporations in Arizona implemented a secondary property tax. The vast majority of new cities have not implemented a secondary property tax. The primary property tax is what you pay now. If you look at your county tax bill, you'll see primaries and secondaries for county, for Central Arizona College, for fire districts, for all kinds of things. None of that will change. Your existing property tax is going to stay exactly where it is. The council can't implement that on their own. They actually have to go to the voters, and based on the statute, the earliest they can do that would be 2026, correct? It's even years. I believe they can only implement those taxes on even years. So it couldn't happen in 2024, no?
No,
Well,
May.
this is information that we've been
May,
given.
it's every May that
it's
the,
November. All of those are the elections that are happening this November.
Right, but a new city that doesn't exist till July 1st, 2025 can't implement a project. They can't go to a
They can
ballot
put it on a general ballot in 2026.
in 2026. That's what I said. That's the soonest, that would be the
That's
soonest,
not a full 2 years, that's 18 months.
well, 2 years from now.
2 years from
So the soonest
from
would
the
be
approval of the.
2026.
It would be November 2026.
Correct, correct. So that's the broad strokes on taxes. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of assumptions about what's going to happen. Ultimately, nothing is going to happen with your property taxes. The shared revenue that is coming in is money that's already being paid. Your income tax, the sales taxes that are being paid, transportation taxes, and your vehicle license tax. Those are the 4 buckets that make up that shared revenue. And the 3 of those 4 begin to accrue on day 1.
Okay.
Of course.
So what about 9-244, which gives the common council the ability to levy property taxes and to clarify secondary taxes only to pay back bonds and overrides taken interest that the cities have taken?
Well, the bond or override would have to be approved by the voters.
Those are the
prior
only
to-
ones that have to be approved by
Right.
voters.
Absolutely.
Under 9-244, the council can levy primary property taxes. That's what it says.
How old is that post you're looking up?
I'm reading it right off of the state legislator website.
My understanding, and I came from California, even there, you cannot impose a new tax
Now,
without a vote of the citizens.
you can only impose a secondary property tax with the vote of a citizen. It's right here in black and white, current as of 5 p.m. today from the state legislature. I mean,
Let me interrupt here. The information we're going off of, if you look up the Arizona League of Cities, they list the information about property tax.
Mhm.
You know, that's where we're getting that. That's definitely something we can look into. That's why we have these things, so, because we don't know everything. But as far as our information that we're getting from the Arizona League upon, you know, about incorporation, their information lists that it has to go to a vote. But that's definitely something, if you can make sure, you know, I think you know Adrian, so if you can make sure Adrian has that, we'll look into it and make sure we put that in as part of our, because we don't want to be misstating things either.
yep.
Just like we don't want, you know, people to misstate things as well. So we definitely, it's a learning process for us too.
I'm a real estate developer though, so I've been involved in annexations
Yeah.
and other things like this before. And
Yeah.
so this is not this is not really my first rodeo at this.
There's a little volunteer
No.
QR.
Thank you
On
for
the
the
cards in the
effort.
All right, did you want to add anything on?
Sure.
Okay, but going back to you, how will incorporation impact local services and infrastructure development in Santan Valley? The roads, does anybody love the roads currently?
No.
Things like that,
No.
maybe?
Yes, it goes to our earlier conversation too, is incorporation in and of itself, doesn't necessarily change, doesn't bring on all sorts of services and whatnot. That will have to be voted on by the new council. There are some essential services that the city has to provide, and they'll contract that out or however they want to handle those essential services. And then everything else is, there'll be a process where they can have open meetings, and people come and comment, and they can figure that out. So there's nothing that we can say that the city will have in 5 years or anything like that. That will be something that the new city will have to work out. I will say that this is an opportunity to work on infrastructure and things like that. Some of the municipalities that we've talked to around us, they're excited to have the opportunity to work with the municipality and tackle things like roads. And one of the things that Adrian and others have brought up here is we want to be able to have a stronger say in what goes on each corner, so we don't have car washes on every other corner, and so the municipality gives us a forum to have those type of conversations, and that's what we're excited about. So we can debate and talk through that and figure out what we want as a community, and so that's what incorporation offers.
All right, thank you, Jack. What role will community input play in shaping the incorporation effort and its outcomes? And I think we just saw a little bit of it here with, is it Jennifer? With her question, and it's a great question because I'm not saying that you're wrong, but they don't know, right? So now they can go back, check with the Arizona League of Cities, Towns and Cities. So that's education sessions like this, where we have that back and forth. But what are some of the other roles that their input may play in shaping your efforts?
Well, the reason it's not me. The reason we've been having these meetings, and I think we've had 5 plus this one, is that we want community input. You are the ones that are going to vote for this. This is the ones that you're looking for new local representation for your community. So so your community input is very valuable to us. In the past, incorporation efforts, they didn't really seek out that. That's one of the reasons why we've been having these meetings and we've been open. And so.
All right. We've talked a little bit about it with needing to have the final map within about 30 to 60 days. What's the timeline for the incorporation process? If you're able to go through kind of some of the main deadlines that are coming up, and what are the key milestones to watch for?
Okay, well, when we first started out, the 5 of us, we decided that we would try to get this on the 2024 thing. We backed up our agenda from there of what dates we had to meet according to the League of Cities thing on incorporation. So we probably went before the county, I think it was in March, and said that we were going to form this committee and put the notice out for everybody to know that it was coming. We have now put in place, so we also did our incorporation, formed our own nonprofit organization and stuff. We then went out to the community and the surrounding cities. We've met with every surrounding city around here. They've all been very supportive of us becoming, even though they're going to lose money in this deal. They've said it's long overdue for us to be a city. We're the largest inhabited area in the county. And I think we're like number 5 in the state or something like that. So we need to be done. We have taken that, and sometime at the end of October, early November, we will present to the Board of Supervisors the map and the petition that we're going to use and put out to start doing. They approve that. They have it, I think, till December to approve that, and then like after the first of the year in January, we will start going out into the community. We need volunteers. We need precinct captains. We need people to go anywhere you can think of to pick up the signatures to get this on the ballot. It's like Buck said, there's 61,000 people that are registered out of the 100,000 that live here. We need at least 6,100 legal signatures, and we're going to have to get probably like 12, like Buck said, in order to get that, because a lot of people will sign up and say, yeah, we think this is great, but they don't really live. It's like we were talking about, the gentleman over here said, why is she doing what she? So the advisory council covers what is known as Santan Valley, which is way bigger than what we're incorporating area. What is the plan called?
The special area plan.
Special area plan is basically their boundaries, and it covers a lot bigger area than what the incorporation is. So that's why she lives outside to answer your question. So we need volunteers. You can go to our website and sign up. You can go to our website and donate money, which we also need. $5, $10. Those all add up over time. So please do that. That's it.
No, thank you.
Just want to clarify, the CDP of Santan Valley is larger than the special area plan. The special area plan is actually pretty much the same boundaries that you all have up right there.
No, it actually goes all out, like close to Magma, and it's a much bigger area than.
No, not the CDP does. The CDP does, but not the special area plan.
That's their regulation, is that.
No, the special area plan was developed by Goodman in 2018. The advisory council came out after that. And the special area plan was actually set and developed to help guide the economic development and everything within the Santan Valley area. It actually identified the transportation as well as economic corridors, et cetera. I remember what we were discussing that time. Yep, for that. So has been already something that the BOS had in place for this area. Now, whether it got followed or not is a different issue. But also in conjunction that when you're talking about what the various board of supervisors have or haven't done, partially separate discussion because it's the BOS. But when you look at development that's gone on, counties, there's other supervisors that have done eco development.
And do you have a comment or is it a general
It was just
question,
mostly
comment?
for the CDP clarification for the CDP.
So she's just clarifying the comment about the special area plan versus the CDP. Oh, all done? Okay, now. All right. So what it was clarification of the special area plan, which is what our organization, separate from these guys, and I know it can't be confusing. We work with the special area plan and the Downtown County Board of Supervisors, and so she was clarifying what that area was. Did you want to elaborate? Or?
No, just
okay. Did anybody else have any questions or comments before we move on in the red?
I just want to know, essential services, that was streets, the sheriff's department, and what was the third one?
Can you hear her okay?
Administration.
Administration, roads, and sheriff.
Planning and zoning.
Things like permit offices
Planning and
and
zoning is
licensing.
part of that administration.
Okay, cool, thank you.
There was another hand that I saw back here.
As far as like infrastructure,
I talked to a lot of people, I was in mortgages, I talked to a lot of people, and
Can you
everybody.
just hold the mic?
Oh, they're saying that
Oh,
a lot
that's
of the businesses aren't coming because there's no infrastructure. The roads are pathetic. So in order to do that, kind of like a roundabout timeframe, if you incorporate, is that gonna give us the timeframe to get the roads, to get the businesses in?
Some of us just feel like it's better late than never. And so if we don't incorporate, then we'll be further behind. But as we incorporate, then maybe we'll start to catch up. And again, the board of supervisors and was pointed out, they are doing a lot of this stuff, and they're doing some incredible work, but their focus is on countywide, and municipality would focus on our area solely. And so we feel that they would give added attention to some of these issues like transportation and zoning and all these other issues. And so that's why we feel it's important to have that voice. But yes, there's a lot of catch up to do. It feels like we're catching up. There's always construction. There's always something going on out here. We're catching up. And that's what, as we can continue to see growth out here, if we don't get ahead of it by incorporating, we'll be catching up for the next several decades.
Some of the communities out the east, Anthem, Magic, they're already considered Florence. They're gonna be in San Valley.
They are.
They're
Yeah,
on
they're in
Florence.
Your family address is separate from whether you're in the community or not.
Yeah.
Anthem itself is in the Florence city district.
Yes.
But Magic Ranch,
You can't interrupt.
Magic Ranch is not in the city of Florence
but it's
right
in
now.
there.
But some of Anthem is, and so they've incorporated some.
That's what I'm telling you.
So we're incorporating Louisiana's map is all in purple, is that correct?
I'm sorry.
The map behind you is everything that is in the purple, the current mapped area. Do you want me to switch to the PDF version?
Yes, so our boundary goes from,
Is that easier or worse?
That's worse.
Well, can we zoom in on this? I think this would be easy.
Oh, what the-
Do you want to cover the northern part first so that I can scroll down or?
well, we can do that. Yeah.
Is that good for everyone in the back? Good.
So we start at the top at Pima, and this covers this is where I live. And then it comes down all the way down to Arizona Farms at the bottom. So there are certain areas like off to the west side. We stopped basically where Queen Creek says that their planning area is. So there are areas where Queen Creek expects to expand into at some point. So we're not fighting with them over borders. No. Yeah. Well, I think it's the Wi-Fi.
It is the Wi-Fi. It's nothing to do with Adrian.
Well, maybe we can just use this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there to answer the question about, somebody asked about Banner Medical Center earlier.
Yeah, so INCorporation and Banner Medical Center are already part of Queen Creek. They were already annexed. All of this area down here, the rural ranch areas, those are excluded from the incorporation boundary primarily because a large portion of that population was adamantly opposed to incorporation the last 2 times. So we didn't include them. We've had some interest from some residents in that area wondering why they were excluded. And they were excluded because their neighbors didn't want to come be part of it. So yeah, this is all kind of, this is not Florence.
Florence thinks it's Florence?
It's sometimes they'll refer to it as their planning area. They plan to make it theirs.
I want to, something
I need, like,
to reinforce too is something that Adrian just said is, we've actually we've tried to build on the efforts, the last several efforts, and there's been some, incredible work that's been done in the past. There's been some incredible work that's been done in the past, and we've tried to build on that. And none of them have been able to get to a vote, and we're hoping to at least get to a vote so that people can have a say in this.
You have a question over here.
So I don't mean to backpedal, but I was wondering two parts. First of all, I'm hearing annex, I'm hearing incorporation. I don't know what the difference is between the two, I'll be honest. So I was kind of hoping to get an overview before we delved into all of that. And then my second question was, we actually live in Magna Ranch Vistas. That's all new building, and they're actually building more. So the people 2-3 years ago that were against it, is that something that could possibly be reopened now that there's new residents in there to revisit that?
So was the first question the difference between incorporation and annexation?
Like, I don't know either, like, and I'm hearing them loosely both being said, and I don't know the difference.
Yeah, it's actually a huge difference, and it's really a really important question. So I'll answer your second question first, then I'll come back to that. So the second question is, could Magna Ranch Vistas be included in the boundaries? Yes, they absolutely could if we got a sense that the community wanted it. There might have to be a conversation to be had with Florence, but they're not. That area is not currently part of our incorporation boundary, and it's not part of Florence's municipal boundary. So it could be put into the map.
You literally, when you pull out of the Vistas and you go 2 minutes up the street, there's a sign that says "Welcome to Santan." And then in Magna Ranch, there's actually a Santan zip code.
Yeah. So it could be included in the incorporation areas, or it could be annexed later. So incorporation basically means that when we become a city, a corporation is what the county does. They incorporate us as a city, and an incorporation is really just a legal definition of what a city, what the initial boundary of the city is. So we have to provide the map to the county, and then once we incorporate, the process of incorporation is the process of becoming a city. And then after we become a city, if there are other areas adjacent to us that it would be beneficial for the residents of that area and for the incorporated city, then it could be annexed. So what annexation has been happening over the last 10 years that you've been seeing has primarily been Queen Creek annexing some of the residential areas and a lot of the commercial areas. And what that does is it increases their tax base without increasing their costs. They can't incorporate a community unless the community votes for it. So in order to get a large portion of the Banner Hospital, the deal was that INcorporation had to come along for the ride. So they incorporated it in INcorporation.
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
Banner was annexed separately, and Quintero just happened a couple years ago, completely separate annexations.
Okay.
The residents pledged in Quintero.
And just the difference between incorporation and annexation. Incorporation, only registered voters within the map boundaries can vote to be incorporated. And anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, annexation, if you own a house in the area that's to be annexed, you get to vote on it.
Whether you live there or not.
There's no vote for annexation, it's signature gathering.
Yeah.
Your
It's
property
signature
owner,
gathering, but you get a say, I'm sorry, yeah, you get a say. So that's kind of like the difference is.
So incorporation, an area that the smallest they go from like continent to country to state to county, they end at county. And they're not yet official town or city. So incorporation takes that and they become a new city or town. Annexation is an established municipality that is a city or a town, and they're like, I want that. We're gonna make that ours. And that's annexation.
Or the citizens in that area go to the city and say, we want to be a part of it.
That's how INcorporation got annexed.
Right, so,
We want to be a part of Queen Creek.
And so potentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, if there, say this were to pass, and this area, whoa, did I do that? Touching the screen?
No, I
or
didn't.
not?
She has the power.
So say this came to fruition, this is the new Santan Valley, and you own a home right here, and your land butts up against it, you might be able to request to be annexed in.
So annexation can happen like into single homes, it doesn't have to be like a large group.
No, there's a minimum, I don't.
There's a
remember.
minimum
It
acreage
sounds
or.
like
Yeah, no, it has to be.
You're dealing with large areas.
Sorry.
You're dealing with large
And so where I'm glad that you made that clarification. When I'm mentioning that, I'm coming from my perspective. And so we own 8 acres. So I might be able to request if I were touching, I don't know, something to look into. But if you're in a community, you might have to look at that differently. So thank you for clarifying, because that's a good clarification. Did somebody, I saw another hand
I was just
up
gonna
here.
say, the only way something smaller gets annexed in, kind of as an isolated position, is there is a small county island statute in place that if a parcel less than 10 acres is surrounded in full by a municipality, the board of supervisors can force that parcel into the municipality.
yes.
And that is the only way that usually individualized parcels end up going without others joining them.
So you could be forced in,
Yes.
because you own less than 10 acres.
Might need to buy my neighbor's property. Did we have more questions over here?
I have one real
Oh, and I, one in the front row too?
Did you explore the difference between becoming a city versus a town, and if there's any differences between that? That's- I think there's some legal things from that standpoint. I'm not familiar what they are, but.
It's statutory based on population.
Okay.
You're given the designation based on your population at the size of
Yeah,
incorporation.
I was gonna say you have to be at least 1,500
You have to
to
be
be
a-
a city.
You have to be at least 1,500 to be a city.
Yeah, yeah, and then there's also, a city has a charter, whereas the town doesn't.
And it was upon their incorporation. So if you look at, I used to live in Show Low, it's the city of Show Low, and they are very proud that they are a city. Do not go there and tell them that they live in a town. They are a city, the city of Show Low, even though it's very small for anybody that's been up to the White Mountains. But they had enough that they were able to establish themselves as a city. But then you go to the town of Gilbert, and at the time of their incorporation, they were smaller, and then it just stuck. So it's not about what your potential is, but what you are upon incorporation. Where did Andy go? Oh, Andy, we have one more back.
There's not a difference in governance between like
No.
a town versus a city, okay. 'Cause that was something that we had heard about the town of Gilbert.
Yes, there is a difference in the way,
Oh, and
there
I
are
see
some
your microphone.
subtle differences between the way a town and a city operate. And that's why like Queen Creek is the town of Queen Creek, not a city. And, it's, Florence is the town. It has
That's
to
no
do-
longer accurate.
Yeah,
They took those
it's
apart.
basically the same thing. I mean, you have a town council and.
Right. There's subtle differences in how things operate.
Now, any municipality can become a district-based municipality instead of a common council, and that's no longer based on whether or not you're a town or a city. And that used to be the statute more than a decade ago, but now it's like Mammoth can become a district-based town, and they will only have 1,000 people.
Yeah, and I think the one thing I did mention that because again, I read the Arizona League, please, if you want, go to our website and you see there's a slide deck from Open House, download. Click on that and you'll see the deck that we shared during our presentation. On a couple of the pages, there's a reference to the Arizona League, because we closed some information from them. And you can go to the Arizona League's incorporation document, and it basically says the difference is the amount of people, right, is one of the designations, and that a city then has the option of having a city charter. And that's about the only difference that I noticed.
Subtle differences.
Over here, and then we'll come back over to
Well,
this
I
way.
just wanted to mention,
Oh, this is Diane, she's another board member.
I was on vacation last week, so I'm not talking. No, I was gonna say, though, back to Deb's point about the PowerPoint presentation. Many of the questions you have tonight are actually answered in that PowerPoint, including the difference between annexation and being incorporated. There are several positive commentaries about why incorporation is important or what it means. And the timeline that Jack also mentioned is right there, is laid out and given the months that the events or the activities will happen. And I know that this team did something similar prior, that's why they didn't repeat it again. But if you do join us on September 30th, this PowerPoint presentation will now be updated with things that have already been completed or activities that have been completed and lots of information. So I just wanted to share that.
So that is, and while Andy heads back to get this question over on this side, it's santanvalleyinc.com. And then Kevin, if you missed it earlier, right when you go to their landing page, their homepage, there's a red banner at the top. Click on the word download right there.
Show up on the phone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you might have to do it from a laptop or a home desktop computer. And that's how we arrived at the slide.
Okay, this might be a dumb question, but,
No dumb questions.
Yeah, there are no dumb questions,
I
trust me,
don't
I've
know.
asked them, there are.
okay, so say we became incorporated. And you talk about we get this $51.3 million every year from the state. But there couldn't be any other any property taxes unless it's voted on. And it doesn't seem like we have a lot of businesses because they're not coming in. So what if it gets voted down every time to raise property taxes? What happens then? If there's, I mean, $51.3 million doesn't seem like it would go very far for doing what is required. Well, I mean, would you even be able to run it at all?
I mean, what's an average cost of a city to do that? What's an average city spend to get what we would
Yeah, there's a
need?
huge range. There's a huge range, and so the cities have to live within their means. So they can only spend what they have coming in.
Well, like Green Creek, what do they spend a year? What's their budget for a year?
Well, hold on 1 second though. It's hard, here's where it's a little tough. You can't compare us to the current Green Creek. I think their budget is hundreds of millions. I don't want to misquote, but I want to say 700 or 800 million. Yeah. But it's taken them 30 years to get to where they're at right now. They've been incorporated for 30 years.
Right.
So they've had a very slow build in the beginning. And then I'd say the last 10 years exploded, right, to get to where they're at today. So you look at them and we can't compare ourselves now.
So compared to that though, like our 51 point whatever million, what roundabout do you think you could get for that?
We'll let you know we'll be able to give you a better idea when our essential costs come out. All right, so that's what we're looking at right now. We're double checking the figures that we've gotten, so we're not ready to release it at this point. But we're hoping within the next week, we'll get that out, and then we'd be able to tell you, this is what it looks like it would cost for the sheriff's department. This is what it would look like to take care of the roads. That's kind of what we're trying to tell you. And again, these are estimates for just the essential costs. All right, just want to make sure that it's not a budget for the city the first year.
And while Andy heads over to our next question, what would the bare bones look like? Would possibly the town council be meeting in a local high school gymnasium, or
there have been examples, where there's been because basically what you're required to do for administration It doesn't mean you have to build a huge building. You can rent an office space, and have someone part-time there, in the first year or whatever it may be. So again, bare bones when we're beginning, you should not see, I would think, a huge difference between what's now. The difference is, in my mind, the long haul. You're going to have someone who's going to be able to put together a zoning commission, put together someone who's going to be able to attract businesses to come here. We're going to be able to say, this is the area that we want to do retail and commercial in. Here's where we want to maybe put a park in the future. Here's where, whatever it is, again, once the city is formed, that's the things that they would have the ability to then control, better than we do right now at our level.
So you had mentioned possibly contracting with the sheriff's department if we become a corporation. We already have a sheriff's department, so how is that going to benefit us? Do we have to rent them back?
It's who's paying for the sheriff. Instead of the county paying for the sheriff, we'd be paying for the sheriff, by contracting for them.
Would that be in our taxes?
I can't hear you, I'm
Would that
sorry.
be in our taxes?
Well, we're hoping the shared revenue and, the shared revenue would take care of that. I believe in everything I've read, it should not take the entire amount that we have. I don't want to go into figures and everything again. In a week or so, when we have our numbers roll out, you'll see what the numbers are. But the shared revenue, we believe, should take care of our essential services. You won't see any increase. Again, we won't have to put forth something for the city council. Hopefully, again, you can't speak for the city council, but they shouldn't have to put a referendum or whatever it's called to get some property taxes to pay for your sheriff. The shared revenue should cover that.
And while Andy heads up to, I think, reddish hair, black sweater, do we have somebody, before you ask your question, if you don't mind holding just one moment? We've talked a lot about shared revenue. There might be individuals in here that don't know what that is and where it comes from. Is there someone on your guest panel that can speak to that? You might have, tell me like I'm a 10-year-old.
That's okay.
Okay.
I spoke briefly about this earlier. The revenue that comes into the state of Arizona is income tax, vehicle license tax, your registration, highway funds, and sales taxes. When you shop, you're paying a state sales tax, a county sales tax, and if you're shopping in a municipality with a city sales tax, you pay that. In Santan Valley, you're paying, 7.2%? We have no city sales tax. You shop in Queen Creek, you're paying 9 to 9.5%, depending on where. Queen Creek has districts that have a 0.5% higher tax than the rest of the city. That's what city councils can do. So those funds all go into the state, and then subject to some of the most convoluted formulas that I've ever seen, the state takes that money and sends it back out to the 91, 92 existing municipalities based on the population. So it's a head count that determines what that number is. Based on the census numbers and the proposed map, that's where that $51.3 million would come from. Based on the 2022 tax revenues that came into the state, the League of Cities estimates that that's what our shared revenue would be in year one. That changes with the economy. The economy goes south like it did 10, 15 years ago, sales tax revenue plummeted. So the shared revenue that went out to the cities dropped. Things have been booming for quite some time now. Sales tax revenues are up, income taxes are up. As our population goes up, vehicle license taxes are going to increase. So those buckets change from year to year based on economic activity. But the formulas that determine how much of that money goes back out to the cities, those are statutory. Those have not changed in quite a while as far as I know. So those four buckets are what are the state shared revenue.
All right, thank you. And then to your question.
He explained a lot of it, but I'm wondering, why are we opposed to be included in Florence? And you all in this area are basically saying we've been ignored for a long, long time. But why don't we just
join in Canal County in the town of Florence where the infrastructure is already present, and then build on that infrastructure for more sheriff, police, fire, EMT. Because you know what, the roads out here, it'll take 51 million in 1 year to fix the roads out here. That's my opinion. So I want to know why I appreciate everything y'all are doing, but there's another option. And the other option is to join Florence in Canal County. When I moved out here 14 years ago, Florence was our school district.
Still is.
Still is, okay. So,
And those two
School
things are
districts are
different.
independent of city boundaries.
School districts are independent, but to answer her question, for example, I'm up in the north. Why, I'm not in the map, but let's just like play and say I'm in the map. Why shouldn't I choose to be annexed by Queen Creek? Or why should somebody else choose to just be annexed by Florence? Those that are in the map. Why would, win them over, why would they choose incorporation over annexation? Anybody?
Well, we've had some conversations with some of the municipalities around us, and the way they project where they want to go, where they want to annex is through these planning areas. And Queen Creek has told us that they have gone as far as they want. There is an option, I suppose, that folks could have that conversation. But they've told us they're not coming any further into Santana Valley. Queen Creek said that. And then Florence, they had some of their planning area into some of our map, but for the bulk of it, they said they don't have any plans into going into that area.
to actually develop our area. Florence does not have any plans.
Correct. There are parts of the map that they do, but yeah, the bulk of the map, the heart of the map, Florence, that's not part of their planning area. It's not part of Queen Creek area. So that's a signal that they don't want to annex us.
And is the current map, is it with their blessing? Is that what somebody, I think, was it one of you had mentioned that you had met with the municipalities?
We met with Queen Creek, Florence, Coolidge, Apache Junction, Mesa, Gilbert.
We need to hear from them if they're saying they don't want it.
Well, here's the thing, you gotta keep in mind, just because you have a planning area, that's their wish list. We've been in, I think part of our area has been in Florence's planning area 10 years at least, and nothing's happened. And this is, second area, but at our last session, one person did say they called the city of Florence, and Florence said they had no intention. And so call the city of Florence and ask them if they have any intention. Someone told me that. I did not call them myself, so this is secondhand that they mentioned. They called both Queen Creek and Florence, and they were told they had no intention of bringing us in. Go ahead and call them and invite them to come. I mean, it's an open meeting, so yeah, go ahead.
We have one more question back here by Andy, and we'll come back up here.
She said.
Very close to you.
Okay. I understand that in order to be annexed, we have to ask.
That's correct.
That is be annexed. And if they agree. But they may not.
Did we have another question up here?
It works both ways. You can ask, but they also can ask you.
So incorporation is also a financial decision. And what that means is for a city to want to incorporate an area, there has to be a return on the investment. And the reason is that they're going to then provide those services that they have existing that your taxes pay for. Now they have to cover more people. So incorporation, if the city's already incorporated, and in Florence, I mean, how many is there? In Queen Creek, by the way, there are 40,000 residents, we have 100,000. So there are some financial decisions that really go along with incorporation because it isn't free. They would have to assume those expenses. Yeah, I'm not talking about annexation, I'm sorry, I'm talking about incorporation. I'm not talking about annexation, I'm sorry. I'm just saying, I'm speaking to the woman who said, why Why doesn't Florence want to incorporate with us, or why don't we ask them to incorporate? The same thing, they may not want to do that as well. It's the same thing. To take over that area would have to return on the investment. It's the same thing.
So I think what she's trying to say, and do, tell me if I'm wrong, is that, so for example, if you go back to the map in the northern area, there's, where did my guy go? Kevin. Kevin. If you go to the northern part of the map, there's, okay. Hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay, so see where it says J.O. Combs Unified School District? I live up there. I'm not included in the map, but Queen Creek is over here to the west. And then Apache Junction is north of me. And Queen Creek came in and they were like, I want all this state trust land. And so they came in and they took all this state trust land. Okay, see where that blue dotted line is? They took a bunch of state trust land, and that's where they're putting the LG lithium plant. And they annexed that area, but they left us. They didn't want us. There's a cost to having us. And so I think that was the comment that she was getting at, is that when you do take or annex a portion of land, you could take state trust land, and that could potentially get you a lot of money. Or you can take a bunch of rural homes and things like that, and that's gonna be a cost to you. And so, they are a municipality, but they're also looking at what it can do for, going back to the question, 51.3 million, where are we gonna get more money? That's sometimes how municipalities will make their.
Jennifer's had her hand
Yeah,
up.
Jennifer.
Is it tired?
I'm used to holding my hand up and people ignore me like this. First of all, I was just reading through the League of Cities and Towns fiscal year 23-24 guidance, budget guidance for cities, and it talks about the truth and taxation notices for the hearings that city councils have to hold prior to a city council vote on increasing the primary property tax. So right there, their most current data and guideline to cities.
If you go to paragraph C of that article that you read, it references Title 42, Chapter 17, which says that a city or a town that did not implement a primary property tax in a given year must go to the voters in order to implement it next year. So if the primary property tax does not exist, the first time it's implemented, it must go to the voters. That's what Title 42, Chapter 17 says.
Okay, so the first time they institute a primary property tax.
Correct.
Excellent. So then as we go into the discussion of essential services, because that data is actually pretty simple to go out there and find. I did an analysis of all of the cities in Pinal County for what their numbers look like and whether or not I believe that a newly incorporated town or city, because it would have to be a city, of Santan Valley would be able to do. And I really don't see any way how you're going to do it for 51.3 million. And I support it. Like, I support incorporation. I think that we need to have our local seat of government where 100,000 people, because chances are that's where we're going to be before the vote even happens, come in to discuss things with their mayor and city council. Also, I'm concerned not about our money going elsewhere, but the fact that we're pulling in money from other rural areas right now, unincorporated areas in Pinal County, to support our growth in infrastructure, because we're spending more on roads in this part of unincorporated Pinal County than they are anywhere else, and we're spending more on roads in this part that we're putting into the pot, given the numbers. And that data is out there for anyone who wants to go out there and take the time to take a look at it and is familiar with reading those budgets and what those property tax levy numbers look like. So if we have to hold a second special election before we can even leverage property taxes, my estimation is that we have to come up with about $130 million from somewhere to tackle the projects that are already committed to being done in the area. Or you have to roll them back. No, we have to take over all of the.
And I think these are great comments. And I think that, do you think that you'll have your cost analysis before your September 30th meeting?
That's all right.
So I think just in the sake of time, and there are some other hands up, and there are some more questions that we do have for our guest panel, I think please come to their September 30th meeting and ask all those questions just because there's only so much they can speak to without the cost analysis done. We'll take one more question from up here in the red, right? Did you have your hand up, or am I?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and then after that, we'll jump back to some of our guest panel questions and then more from the audience.
I just wanted to say that I'm surprised to hear that Queen Creek has no interest in coming south even further. And the reason I say that is I see the concrete in the boundary up there, and Queen Creek provides the water for the concrete. I'm aware of that. I also was told that Promenade by Bolton made some sort of arrangement with Queen Creek, and they provide the fire services for Promenade, which really surprised me. So if they're doing that farther down towards us, I'm surprised to hear that they have no interest in expanding their city limits.
You're
That's
correct
direct from the
about
county.
Promenade, they are a fire district that, Queen Creek covers, but again, in speaking with Queen Creek, they've not indicated, because there's some people who live in that area that wanted to be in the map, so I believe they had conversations with Queen Creek. And it's not in the plan to incorporate them, but they're providing the fire district, which requires special taxes, right, for that area then to pay for their services that they're getting.
So just out of curiosity, the area that is Santan Flats and U-Haul and the Dodge dealership, I know that Empire is the border for Queen Creek. And if we're doing farther down here, what are they going to be? Are they still going to be unincorporated?
Yes.
They are. Okay. I was just curious.
There's part of Empire that is in Queen Creek's planning area, that promenade, and the dealership that will be in Queen Creek. But,
It's in the planning area, maybe, but it's not incorporated
Right.
at this point.
The dealership's already in Queen Creek, and then some of promenade, some of that new neighborhood is in their planning.
And then
But they don't go south, well, right there, they don't go south on Highway, a little bit further down to South Highway, but not on Santan Heights.
Isn't it
Two,
U-Haul company in Queen Creek?
I'm sorry?
the U-Haul company is in Queen Creek.
It is.
It's in the planning area, I don't think it's incorporated, but it's.
There's some are saying yes, some are saying no. Our deputy from the sheriff's department, thank you for being here. Let's all give him a round of applause. And he came through with the answer. It's in Queen Creek.
Even that portion on highway in front of U-Haul all the way around into Empire is down to.
Thank you.
This is Queen Creek, this is the plan.
Oh, see, there's a little tiny area.
Yeah, it's a little notch that they got. And I don't know if you're prepared to answer this question, but I've heard it come up multiple times within some of the questions that they're asking. What is the cost of a residential area versus the cost to a town or municipality of, look at Ironwood Crossing, and then look at where the Safeway and all those businesses are. How is that different, and why, to answer the question, why may they not want to take on more residents versus taking on more businesses?
Residence is required.
I'm sorry, we stole your microphone for it's the traveling microphone, there you go.
Residential areas require services like sheriff, utilities, roads. Commercial developments are revenue generators. They generate economic activity that generates local sales taxes. So much of Arizona's state, county, and city budgets are funded with sales taxes, which is unlike many other states. The model here is that sales taxes fund a very significant part of our governments at every level in Arizona. So generating commercial properties that generate sales taxes is the focus of every city in the state of Arizona. Queen Creek is no exception to that. Queen Creek, now, annexation requires contiguous borders, right? So Queen Creek can't jump across Ironwood Crossing, or jump across Ironwood Road, head down Combs and grab a subdivision down there. They have to work their way to that. So in order for Queen Creek to generate or to build those commercial properties along Ironwood, they had to take Ironwood Crossing in order to get to that land. So for them, it was it's a balance, right? You have to take some residents to get to the empty land where you can zone it for commercial. And that's essentially what most cities do. That's what planning commissions and zoning commissions are for, is those long-term plans. All right, we're gonna have residences out to here. We're gonna pick these areas and set them aside for commercial, retail, and industrial, right? The northern part of Germain, along from Ellsworth all the way out to Schneff, along where that LG plant is going to be. That will be a commercial corridor for Queen Creek. The LG plant is the anchor for that right now, but that road will eventually be nothing but commercial industry, much like Pecos to the west of Ellsworth. If you look at the construction that's going on around the airport, massive amounts of commercial development. That stretch between Ellsworth and eventually, my guess is going all the way out to the new north-south highway when it opens or when it gets built. That will be a commercial corridor for Queen Creek, generating massive amounts of tax revenue for the city.
So it's like a real life risk meets monopoly. Should have practiced. We'll take a question back here. Andy, if you can bring the microphone over to her. And then we'll go back to some guest panel questions. We have about 20 minutes remaining.
So do you feel that this current map that we have includes enough commercial land to actually bring that revenue that we're going to need for expansion in the Santan Valley?
Did you get a question?
I missed the first part of it, I'm sorry.
The current map that we have, does that include enough commercial land to bring that revenue that we're gonna need for services and expansion?
I don't know the exact amount of commercial land that's within the boundary. I'm still working a bit on the zoning map, but there is quite a bit of commercial land inside the boundary. The problem is that it's all spread out into very small areas that are large enough for maybe a good sized strip mall. There's a lot of open land that is currently zoned as rural or agricultural. A lot of that is state trust land. A new city government could rezone that land to commercial. And then there are also a lot of development leases that are going on right now that have been in place for 20 years or more. And those are commitments that are already made by the county. So most of those, I believe, are residential, and they're currently zoned as rural ranch that the county will change to residential or commercial, depending on the developers, what the developers want to do. Right now, we don't have any say in that, but when those leases turn into property sales and new zoning in a new city, then we would have some kind of say in how those get rezoned. So right now, a lot of the development that happens is land that's not zoned the way that the developer wants it to be zoned. They have to go to the county. We'd like them to we'd like to make that decision locally.
To give an example, as I mentioned before, I live up on the northern part where the LG lithium plant is. When we bought our property prior to COVID in 2019, that whole strip was originally zoned for commercial. I think some of it was residential. It definitely wasn't industrial, and then they changed that. So that's just one example of how they can take state trust land or other rural properties and rezone them. If you ever see those big black and white signs, that's usually what's happening there. Does that help to answer? Do you feel like your question was answered?
Yeah, I feel like that to an extent, but we also are dealing with on the east side of San Juan Valley, you're dealing with reservation land. So whereas Queen Creek is going in and annexing in state trust land, they have a larger area to tap into, whereas our map is going to have less land available for those purposes.
All this green area in here is all state trust land.
Okay.
And most of that is wide open space.
But you can't touch it.
It can be annexed.
But let me try to explain something. So, like Adrian just said, all this stuff in green is state trust land. You notice that a lot of it is along Hunt Highway and Gansell. These are major areas for retail and industrial development. We included railroad tracks and stuff to get in here. A north-south highway is going through here. So as we go along, not at first, but sometime over the next 10 years or so, all of this will happen. Industrial and retail will come to this. Ask me how I know, it's because that's what I've been doing for 50 years, is working for commercial developers and stuff, and getting that in. And the two big things you've got to have, if we want to attract industrial in that, is we have to have a rail spur, and we have to have a highway. So that, but it's going to take time to get that. Are you going to get that the first year? No. So hope that answers your question. There is growth. There's plenty of room for growth. There's plenty of opportunity.
But is that guaranteed? Is that a guaranteed
Nothing.
thing that says that's?
Nothing's guaranteed.
Are we all guaranteed we're going to get up tomorrow? There is
No,
no.
but I mean, is there more of a guarantee saying
That's
it's more likely
disrespectful.
to go that way than not that way because about that road? What is it?
I'm
You're just having
needed.
Moses.
Okay, is the north-south corridor going through?
Right.
They bought the land. It's in its second phase of environmental studies. So they're narrowing the scope of how wide the strip will be. That is a fact. That is going in. Industrial developers will have to bring the spurs in, but we do have the ability that we have the railroad tracks that we can tie on the spurs. That's how that works. Did that answer your question?
Well, kind of, because I mean, that's why we lost Costco out here in San Juan Valley. We have no infrastructure. That's why they got it up in homes.
There we go.
After 24,
There we go.
they're gonna unload the product and they're gonna sit back out. So how many years is it gonna take for us to see any of that is gonna make them say, man, I really wanna go there?
10 years.
Yeah, 10 years.
10 years.
As we
Yeah,
start,
that's what I'm saying.
first off, the developers and stuff and all of those people, they don't like dealing with counties. Counties have no real authority to do anything with them. They want municipalities. That's why Queen Creek has been so. They have people out there at every one of those things around the United States talking to people to bring things here. They have these big meetings in Las Vegas and Atlanta and everything where you have a development coordinator for the city to go there and entice people to come to you.
So how are we gonna fund it?
And
Because we
hold
just-
hold on,
How do
just
we
one
fund it?
moment. If we can come back to the guest panel question and then we'll go back because we are running out of time. So we want to ask one last question of this guest panel, STV 2024, and then we'll go back to the floor if there's any other questions. Can you provide a cost comparison with other communities in Pinal County, Casa Grande, Coolidge, Florence, and Maricopa in comparison? And there's several items. The average cost of property taxes for a home worth $400,000. What is the tax rate? The population of those towns or cities versus the potential Santan Valley. How soon do they get fire suppression services after incorporated, contracted or owned? So just kind of comparing some of those established areas.
It's very hard because what we're trying to do here is very unique. Gilbert, they incorporated, I think they had like 100 and something people or whatever when they did the town of Gilbert. I think it was a 1 mile, square mile. Casa Grande, you know, how long have they been incorporated? Queen Creek's been incorporated for 30 years and they're not even at the same population we're at. So it's hard to compare apples to apples, right? I can't tell you the comparison of a $400,000 home here and in Casa Grande. But I can tell you that when we looked at our essential costs, we did look at other cities, right? And there were some, like Casa Grande, 57,000, Maricopa, 66,000. They looked at Yuma with 98,000, has a little bit more of a population similar to ours, but yet has been incorporated longer. So it's hard to do, like I said, those comparisons to tell you. I think they mentioned earlier with fire suppression, Queen Creek did a subscription service until they did their own fire department just recently. Scottsdale, all of those, they were on sorry, it's been a long day and I'm starting to lose my, they're on a contract service, right, for a while before. So again, it's hard to say and compare because we're so unique that we're going to be, if we get incorporated, we're going to be the fifth largest city in Arizona, something like that. So it's a force to be reckoned with,
All right, Andy, oh, there you are. If you come right here and then over there.
Okay, this is gonna take it off a little bit. What's on? What is the STV org structure? If you guys are offered a position to be on the first council, will you take it, and will you take a salary pass that is mandated by state statute? Who's running for council?
You want to answer individually?
I don't know if anybody else is thinking of it, but.
Absolutely. So the first
It's a
one
hard
is,
no.
what is your guys' organizational structure for this? Or are you a 501c3? Are you a C4? Are you a PAC? What is it?
We're a C4.
Exactly.
Means we're a nonprofit, but like, let's say you wanted to donate, you can't take a agenda. I mean, maybe John should explain the financial.
Well, it's, 501c4 is an issue-based organization, right? 501c3 is a pure nonprofit and charity that raises money for charitable works. 501c4 is more of it's a similar organization, and the numbers refer to the IRS codes. A C4 is an issue-based, right? So you can raise money for an issue like INcorporation. It's not a political action committee. We can't spend money on political races. We can't spend money on campaigns. We can't spend any money on, it's strictly for the purpose of a specific issue like INcorporation. That's all the C4 is.
Okay, so then the next part from there is, sorry, that answers that question, your organizational structure is C4. What is, if you guys are offered a position on the board, but if you're offered by the board, BOS, a position to be on the first council, which historically speaking, those who are on the first council are the ones that have pushed the organizational effort, so that means all y'all. Are you gonna take a position, and will you take a salary beyond what is mandated by state statute, or a salary whatsoever if there is not one mandated for a particular position?
I'll answer
Given
that
you're trying to
first.
run it lean.
I'll answer that first. No, I have no interest in sitting on, I have no interest whatsoever in sitting on city council. Paid or unpaid.
Been there and done that. I will make that decision if it's ever offered at that time, but since I've already been on city council and a mayor, I'm not sure I really want to go through that again, so.
Yeah, I have absolutely zero political ambitions. But the reason I'm on this board is about serving the community. It's all about service. If I'm offered a different job than the job I have now, I would not take it. If I'm asked to serve, I would certainly consider it.
And then we had another question up here.
Yes. Thanks. With all the thousands of homes that are being built in Santan Valley, I understand that from each individual home, $3,300 is paid. Now, does that go to roads? Does that tie into our revenue here anywhere that is helpful to us?
Are they development fees? Do you know where the fees are coming from that you're referencing?
Well, they're coming from the sale of each individual home. It's paid somewhere to someone, $3,300.
Is that a sales tax? Not a residential.
People buying the homes.
Yeah, that sounds like a development fee that the builders pay the county. It's essentially a permit fee that the developer pays to the county that the property is being built in for the right to build that property. That would not be money that, well, these are all county properties, so that money's all going to the county now. Now, if INcorporation is successful, then the city can adopt its own development fees that could be less or more than that. And they would then, at that point, decide where those funds are spent. Typically, development fees help offset infrastructure costs, right? Expansion of sewers, expansion of utilities, expansion of roads, things of that nature. But that's typically what those are for.
And we are running out of time. It's 8:23. We're supposed to wrap up at 8:30 here. Do you have any last sentiments, the guest panel, that you would like to share? Volunteers, donating, website, how do you get involved? How do you get them to come out to their area to see if they would like to garner people to take them off the map or put them on the map, either way?
If you didn't already get a business card, please take one. It's got definitely a little QR code where you can volunteer. It's got a QR code if you want to donate, because it is going to take money for us to print petitions and send out mailers so that we can make sure people know about this effort and get involved. Again, volunteer, volunteer, volunteer. And again, our website, and September 30th, we're having another open forum. Please come. And if you're in a community and you want us to come to you, just let us know. We're doing that for a community in October. They reached out to us and we set something up. So again, just go through the website and, there's a place where you can contact us and everything and send your information and let us know what it is, and we'll be happy to meet with you.
Is that meeting the center on Occidental? Is that?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. If you go, we
Yeah,
have.
that's my community, that's why I just want to make sure.
Yeah. And we have a Facebook page where, we try to, I would love to see it more than 100 people, so please, share it. But we try to post things there too, where you guys can get some information and whatnot. So, just please, get involved. We just want to make it to the ballot. That's our main focus here, is to get on the ballot so we can make a decision, because in the past, it's never gone to the people. It's never gone that far. It's always been somebody else has had a play in it, that it's stopped the efforts before it could become something that the people can choose. And that's all we're trying to do.
And just in the interest of making sure that everyone feels that they had a fair opportunity to ask a question, is there anyone else that has a final question that they were reluctant to ask or would like to ask? We're going once. Am I missing a hand? Oh, over here. Where's Andy?
Real quick. With all the land that you planned out on the map that you currently have, do you have a projection of what the size of the city would actually end up being compared to, we're looking at 100,000, which is a huge start, but is it, all the other cities already have plans on how big they want to become. Queen Creek says they're only going to become X amount of size. Have you figured that out within the land that's available?
This map is 46 and a half square miles.
But I think he's asking.
Population,
Yeah.
city council would have to do
I
that.
don't care about the size.
The population is, as of the last census, was 91 million.
Right.
91,000.
But
To answer your question.
Within that area, you already know that there's a whole bunch of developers that are planning on building. You should have a count of how many houses that are gonna be and what would be our future size, which will also help us determine what kind of money we might be able to get later on down the road too. So.
Estimated growth.
Right, estimated growth. What do you project the size of the city? If you haven't, you should probably think about that.
That's not for us to decide, though. That's a city council, that's an elected official.
No, you can do that based on what all of the developers are. You know how many houses are gonna go in.
I think he's just asking because I think we could all agree the 2020 census is probably very inaccurate, right?
Yeah.
So I think he's just looking at what the potential current true
And
numbers
it's a question, we'll see if we can get an answer for it, so that again, it's a living, breathing thing that we're trying to create here. We always add information to it. So for the September 30th discussion, maybe we'll have that piece of information that we can share then. Because I know, yes, there are a number. I think they're only building, I think right now there's 10,000 actively being built.
We're
But I
adding,
don't,
one zip code is adding 15 rooftops a week right now.
Yeah.
Just one of the zip codes.
I don't want to, until we get a definite number, I don't want to just blurt out a number and.
But it's a good question.
I think it'd be
Yeah.
valuable to have that available so people understand what the size
We'll put it down and I'll write it down and we'll see what we can find out.
Just gonna research that now.
See, we have an issues, what are they called, issues? Research committee, so if this is the kind of stuff you like.
She wants you to volunteer for the research committee. And Jennifer, I think, is going another.
Jennifer's not volunteering.
Let's give them a round of applause and thank them for coming.
Did it right there.